Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, everyone. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome onto the program. So today on the show, for both segments, we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans, managing editor over at popzara.com. You can, of course, head on over there. They do a good job of everything from movies, video games, books, reviews, general discussion pieces, their own podcast, and more. They have a lot going on there. And yeah, it's always fun, and we definitely enjoy having Nathan here on our program the last Friday of every month. So you can set your clock to it. It's always a lot of fun. So, but before we get into the different stories and everything that we're going to talk about today, computeramerica.com. First things first. That's where you'll find everything: past shows, future shows, all the shows, podcasts, social media links, all that and more. You can of course find that there on at computeramerica.com. So, I think with that being said, everyone, I hope that you are looking forward to a great weekend and you are, just ready to move on. I can't believe it's already turning into, April, May. It's already turning into May. This year is flying by. So let's go ahead, bring on our guest and get things started. So as I said before, longtime Computer America correspondent, managing editor over at popzara.com. And if Popzara rings a bell, it's because, hey, they help us with a lot of events and everything from E3, CES, and more. They're very helpful with those. And on top of that, their contributors are regular guests here on our program as well. So Nathan, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
Yo, Ben, what's going on? Every time I show up here, it's like Groundhog's Day. Like, I keep hearing you say all these wonderful things about me. I'm like, who is this person? Like, what's going on? And all I hear is Sonny and Cher. I was like, this sounds like a really cool person. And then I look in the mirror and I say, oh, so it's the same thing.
You are a cool person. That's not fair. But yeah, so how you been? I mean, it's been a month. Anything new? Anything different?
Well, as for those who don't privy, Ben and I have all sorts of scandalous conversations before the show. Really juicy stuff that, you should join the VIP club and,
of course,
and Ben's Patreon account to find out insider information. But
OnlyFans. We switched over to OnlyFans.
You know what? I apologize for anybody listening who just threw up in their coffee. By the way, Ben, I was going to say, I think we both upgraded because you are not wearing your spectacles.
Well, thank you for noticing. It's been almost a year now. Last June, I had laser eye surgery. So
you can shoot lasers out of your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. It's
so you're Kano from Mortal Kombat, the comic relief in the new movie. You're Cyclops.
I have not seen the new Mortal Kombat movie, but I've heard good things and bad things. But overall, I've heard it's a pretty good video game movie. So,
you know what? Like all the critics saying, it's a movie. So No, long story short, I upgraded. So for those who don't know, I'm a big proponent of mini ITX computers. I like things that don't take up a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
You know those mini home shows you see on Home Shopping or whatever?
Yes.
Like, that's kind of my version of erotica. Like, that's kind of a thing for me. Like, I like, it's, I guess, in another lifetime long ago, I was probably Japanese. I like things small and compacted, nice and neat. And so for years, I've been rocking this Cooler Master case. I think it's called the Elite 130. Looks like a shoebox, but there has never been a smaller ITX case that does what this case does. Full-size GPU, everything. Unfortunately, all things get old, and it was falling apart. My local Micro Center would not let me come and raid their demo unit for pieces anymore.
Yeah.
It had been pretty pick clean. But look at that thing. Isn't that attractive? The only problem is that, see those giant gaping holes? Like, they don't really keep the dust out. There's things on the bottom. The fans were getting old. The USB ports, which are all USB-A port, none of them were anything higher than USB 3. I've seen some really nice mods of this machine, but Ben, I am not that ambitious. I like my Lay's chips original.
People can get very intricate with their PC builds, and I always love to see people who do like their own piping and custom liquid cooling kind of circuits. But yeah, I'm with you. Just basic fans, basic case,
basic stuff, and for the most part, it's run me really well. It's been a marvelous gaming machine, full size GPU, everything. But things move on. I have not been able to find a case that's anywhere close to as small, but thankfully, the case I chose, I'm not going to really give a lot of the brand names a lot of play because they don't pay you advertising. Mm-hmm. But I'll say this. Another Cooler Master was an option. A Leon Lee was an option. They do pretty good stuff. By the way, Leon Lee, I love you to death, but damn, your cases are ugly. But they're very functional, though, and small. But the one I picked was actually, might surprise you. I picked the NZXT. What was it? The N210?
N210.
You might remember
H210 maybe?
H210, something like that, but not the 210i. That's the one with all the fancy lights. I don't want that. They're the company.
You don't like fancy lights? I love RGB. I know it's a meme at this point, but it's so much fun.
I compromised. I got the red version. So if you scroll down your page, I know you can't see it, but there's a red version of that case. And so I got the red version. It looks like one of the soldiers from the Star Wars Last Jedi movie.
Right.
And I'm sorry to identify this case with that movie, but what a nice cherry red. But the only problem is my motherboard's pretty advanced. I actually have one of the most advanced mini ITX boards. Right. I have the Phantom. I have who do I have? Gigabyte, I think. Phantom Gaming ITX Thunderbolt. Anyway, I have an AMD board with Thunderbolt. Go figure. That thing has a USB-C port on it I cannot use, so I'm kind of future-proofed. But overall, it went in smooth. It looks nice. Airflow's better, and I'm on it right now.
Yeah, and by the way, I was kind of looking at this the other day. I have two things to say. First one, airflow, very important, and you should have one larger fan sucking air in and two smaller fans blowing air out in the back and the top of your case. Because a lot of cases, I feel like people don't. Well, actually,
underneath it too. By the way, you got to make sure you have some flow under the case.
Yeah, for sure. So, and actually, your H210 does it kind of perfectly. The directions of your fans, it's not just about forcing air in, but it's making sure that there's plenty of ways that the air can get out. And, and actually, I've even seen some... Yeah, and I've even seen some filters, some filters lately that you can put in front of your fans to minimize the dust.
Okay. I want to talk about that because... That was actually the impetus why I did this, because Cooler Master was making all sorts of cases with those really cool magnetic flaps, those magnetic dust flaps.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of them were mini ITX, and that just doesn't seem to be a thing that they do. But I want to give your your listeners a warning if they're going to get this case. This case is kind of like the Linux of cases. And you know how I feel about Linux. Linux people are people who go, oh, it's real simple. Just bring up terminal and type in 50 lines of code. Right? So like as cool as this case is and it's nice, in order to maximize its space saving capabilities, you need to put the work in. You need to route the cables. You need to do all this stuff. Yeah. You don't got a lot of space, but it's pretty ingenious how the cables wrap around the back, how they have mounting brackets. I mean, our good friend Herman helped me a little bit with it, but we got it though, and it wasn't that hard. And so, yeah.
And really, you know, the size of cases, I unfortunately, well, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, I got a case years ago when I got like the biggest case because I future proof, and I wanted that case. What's that?
You like them big.
Yeah, and you know, the case is actually sitting on my desk. Like when I upgraded my office and kind of built this little studio here, I actually got like a standing desk, and it came with like this little attachment that you can actually attach your case underneath with the holder. My case is so big that this thing's universal, fits any PC except for the one that I got. It's like 2 inches too tall for the universal kind of thing. So my next computer is probably like you could go as big as you want, and there's lots of room in there. I can stick my head in there. It's great, but at the same time, I don't do it that often, and I wish it were just on the larger side, but not crazy big. So
like I said though, I mean, I'm kind of hampered by my own design limitations. Like I like the mini ITX style, so it's, to me, like I said, it's tiny houses, and so it's like if you look at a tiny house and say, oh, I get all the space I want. I have a bathroom, I have a living room, I have this, and it's all the same room. Yeah, you have to transform the thing like Optimus Prime to get anywhere. And after a while, people don't want to make that sort of concession. I totally get it. My living space looks like a demo unit at IKEA. So I get that most people might not be comfortable with this. It's very tiny, but it's very clean and neat. But that's the compromise I chose to make because I like the aesthetic. So.
Right. Yeah, I completely understand, and I'm glad that you're able to do that because, as I understand it, a lot of people are having trouble even getting computer parts.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not just people, but also, entire organizations, car companies, things like that can't, even like Sony can't build enough consoles because there's not enough chips. Xbox can't. It's a real problem in the world right now.
Except for Apple, though, because somehow they seem to have more than enough chips to go around.
Well,
no
they
shortage
build their
on
own,
iPhones.
So.
Exactly. I was talking about this the other day about a friend who we were trying to upgrade. I said, look, if you're going to upgrade your computer, upgrade the aesthetics and upgrade the peripherals. Like, if there's something on your computer you can upgrade now, like a hard drive, stuff that you can take with you, don't worry about the core components, because the core components are too expensive. They're not worth the cost, the uptick right now. If you've been gaming on your PC, continue gaming on your PC. Like, hold it out because you are going to waste so much money.
And like that's how I feel because like I'm still rocking the Intel i7 7700K, which is at this point almost 4 generations back now. It's a little bit back there. And I have the NVIDIA Titan X, like the first generation Titan. So like it's good, and it's probably as good as like maybe a 1080 or definitely not as good as a 2080, but maybe a little bit less. But man, I'm so eager to build my next computer, but I know that this one works. It's serviceable, and I'm gonna have to wait till mid next year, most likely, to even consider upgrading.
I looked what I had. So what I have is I have the AMD Ryzen. Oh goodness, I just clicked out of it. Give me 1 second. I have the Ryzen 5 3600. Yeah, which by the way, I guess most people consider like the sweet spot for price and performance. And I have a NVIDIA 1060 Ti. Which is, I think, is like what, 5 years old, but it was a hand-me-down. So.
But it's actually funny. Like the 1060 Ti was actually re-released by NVIDIA like this year to help with kind of the shortage in demand. And yeah, it's probably one of the best cards that is actually in stock lately.
Well, I mentioned about peripherals, and before we move on, though, I just want to say another thing you can upgrade on your computer is the monitor. And so many people are rocking old displays. You don't understand. I mean, you do. But your monitor dictates a lot of what your computer can do. It dictates the resolution. It dictates performance. You get a good monitor, it'll help out it'll assist your video card. It'll do certain things. Me, myself, and I have a 2016 Agon. It's a very rare, Ben, 24-inch 1440p monitor, which they really don't make. So it's 1440p, but it's also 144 rehertz. It's so good. It's got a TN panel, But every time I say I want to upgrade this thing, I don't want bigger. Like, that's the thing. I don't want a 27-inch monitor. Okay, that's a total BS. I have a 27-inch monitor. I'm looking at you, but that's my second monitor. But my primary one, you said you had LASIK surgery, so you understand. You had some vision problems at some point.
Right.
Some people look at screens and they see them differently. Like I can't look at a 27-inch screen and feel comfortable typing and doing a lot of my work. But 24 is like my sweet spot. So unfortunately, I'm kind of locked in because I don't think they make them anymore. So yeah,
I'm sure you can find some, and don't get me started on monitor. Like that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to change out my graphics card is because I'm currently sitting on one 34-inch monitor, which is kind of one of those ultra wide kind of deals. So I'm sitting on that with 3 other monitors, kind of in a little array. Like people walk into.
You're obsessed. So.
Yeah, people walk in, they're like, who needs that much screen real estate? And I'm like, I could probably squeeze one more monitor in if I really try.
You know who does that? You know who does that, Ben? Supervillains in B-grade action movies. You ever watch one of these movies? The villain's always in a room and he's surrounded with monitors and he's just looking. He's like, "You do this, do this."
Yeah, yeah.
What was that movie that just came out?
I do have like that curved monitor mount, so like they kind of wrap around the desk here. I love it so much. I've never seen anyone else with the setup, but I love it.
No, you and Herman, man. You guys like those big wraparounds, and I'm gonna recommend something to your listeners real quick if they want an idea what I'm talking about. There was a new movie with Mel Gibson that came out this year. It was supposed to come out last year, but it came out this year on Hulu. Boss Level on Hulu. It's basically it's Groundhog's Day meets Crank. It's actually pretty good. There's a review for it on Popsara. But Mel Gibson's the bad guy, and pretty much all he does exactly what he did when he was in the Expendables 3. Mm-hmm. He just stands around in a room with monitors and shouts orders. And so, yeah. But it's a good movie. Like, Boss Level's pretty good. Expendables 3 is garbage. So, yeah.
There
Boss
you go.
Level.
So, we're definitely going to move on from the computer stuff, but I'm glad that you definitely brought that up. And, hey, I hope that your new monitor sticks around your new computer sticks around for a bit. Well, new, old, transplanted, facelifted, whatever you want to call it. Speaking of hardware, let's go ahead and go into the first story that you have here with Wi-Fi 6E.
Yes.
And, you're not usually the first one to bring up new standards and things like that. So, why did you decide to bring this up?
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that lets the canaries in the mine, fade away until the standard gets ready. But I mentioned to you before that I upgraded something else. So I'm in the Kansas City area. So for all you people thinking Kansas City is all this, we have Google Fiber here better than anywhere else.
Right.
So I am now upgraded to Google Fiber 2 gigabit. And it's a little different. So it's a smidge more expensive, but they gave me a good deal for being a good customer. So let me say something. I don't need this. Nobody needs this. It's total greed. And who cares? So I was rocking the old Google Fiber 1 gigabit, which is fast enough. I told you I even rewired my own basement to get a landline. Totally worth it, by the way. But I had these Google pucks, the mesh routers everywhere. They look like hockey pucks. And I had to have these damn things everywhere around the house. And I had to buy handles to put them in the slots. And even then, sometimes they lose connection. They have Ethernet cables, so you can direct connect them. There's all kinds of stuff. It's fun, but it's a little mess. With Google Fiber 2, the big deal is actually it's Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah.
Which almost nothing uses. But here's the thing. You can't even look it up online. If you try looking the equipment up online, the Google website doesn't even have it. That's how hush-hush this is. One Google Wi-Fi 6 router replaces all the hubs in the house. My roommate upstairs, who has struggled even with Google Fiber pucks to get 25 megs down on Google Fiber and 20 megs up,
right?
Immediately after we just changed the router out, she was going up to 150. We actually upgraded her NIC, what do you call it, Ethernet card, Wi-Fi card.
Yeah,
she's getting 500 now. So we're getting like
that's impressive over Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so much better. I can feel the cancer, but I'll say this. By the way, we're all vaccinated in this house, so
that's good.
If you come here and so you have to worry about the Wi-Fi. You don't have to worry about COVID. But the performance is limited only in the upload because, and a lot of your listeners are going to hate me for saying this because I'm going to sound like I'm complaining, but on the old Google Fiber, it's asynchronous. You get gig down, gig up, which is awesome. It literally changes how your internet is. You need a good upload speed. With Google Fiber 2, you still get the same upload speed. So while you get you can get theoretically 2, I only still get gig up, but my motherboard is not good enough.
Yeah.
So I had to get a USB-C Thunderbolt port. It's too much, Ben. I don't need this.
And this is something that I guess a lot of people are going to start running into, because it's like, who needs a gig? Who needs 2 gigs? That kind of thing. But let's face it, we're putting our security, we're putting our phones, our systems, our entertainment, we're putting everything on our bandwidth. And something that I think people don't realize is that even if you could get a gig down, and let's say you were downloading, let's go old school. Let's say you were downloading a movie from iTunes. Yeah. So and like you think, oh, well, with 1 gig, I could download a 3 gig movie, in 3 seconds. No, Apple limits your ability to download from them to, 25 megabits, 10 megabits per second. Steam, Apple, like pretty much every server limits people to, somewhere between 10, 15, maybe 25 if you're lucky. So, but it's more about that simultaneousness, which again is what I think Wi-Fi 6 and 6E helps with, is simultaneity with devices.
Simultaneously. We're all part of the board. But I'll say this. I mentioned how a monitor will improve your computer just from, quality of life.
Right.
But the Wi-Fi 6, though, isn't just about getting faster speeds. I mean, you can, like we talked about these Linksys routers, you can attach these to your whatever, and you'll still get the faster speed of Wi-Fi 6. The problem is delivery of the data. So, for example, when I do podcasts and everything, when you do gaming, you really need that low latency. And I took a screenshot, and I'll send it to you after the show. My millisecond latency was 0. And the vast majority of you listening to this right now, in fact, I would say 100% of you, have never gotten 0 latency. And so I'm literally getting internet from the future. And so I'm getting all this stuff, like Apple just announced that the 4K Apple TV is coming out, right, and all this new stuff. They have Wi-Fi 6. Like that's going to be a major product for Wi-Fi 6. Not even the PlayStation and Xboxes have Wi-Fi 6. Like this, let me tell you, I'm a believer. It works. This is not 5G hocus pocus. Like this crap works, and it works immediately.
I'm curious what the 6 gigahertz bandwidth is actually going to be useful for. I have been very vocal about my concerns with 5G, 5 gigahertz, not 5G, 5 gigahertz. Because whenever I have a router that actually uses it, unless you are in the same room and like almost line of sight of your router, it is nigh useless, even through like a single wall.
It's limited.
Yeah, 2.4 is going, 2.4 has been the standard, not because we just discovered 5G randomly or 5 gigahertz randomly. It's that 2.4 just works the best. It has the best power and propagation.
Well, I told you I had a Google Fiber, man, and we had, in order to get the speeds, you have to go through these hoops. You have to go to 5G. You have to go through the 5 gigahertz. You have to be within the same room. You have to, if you really want the speed of Google Fiber, you're not going to do it wirelessly. Like you're going to have wires. And like at most on Google Wi-Fi, we've never gotten more than 330. Never. Right. And so with this, we're getting almost triple that with one router. No, I mean, think about this though. So instead of having 5 mesh routers, I have one router, and we have a big house. It's getting at least 4 to 5 times faster with that one device. Like this crap is powerful. It's penetrating through the walls. Like I said, I feel like if I held an egg in my hand, it would sizzle. I don't need my hair. I don't need to have children. But the fact is, like I said, I don't think it's about the speed, Ben. Like I think if you were to get this thing, I think you'd have a similar experience. It's about the quality of the speed. And so, like you said, 5 gigahertz is great if you're sitting next to the router. But the fact of the matter is that this is something that Wi-Fi should have been a while ago. It feels... You know what this feels like? It feels like when cell phones used to make you choose between data and talk, like CDMA, whatever. This feels like you don't have to choose anymore. And I think once more stuff gets Wi-Fi 6 enabled, I think we're going to we're going to see a homogenization, and we're going to have better quality like data transfers in the house.
So something that you don't have to deal with because you're dealing with Google. A lot of people out there are not as fortunate to deal with a company that just started a couple of years ago. I would even throw on, if you're going to do all this, buy your own modem as well. Because hey, a lot of companies out there.
Are you talking about Spectrum or Comcast?
I am not. I do not say which.
I'll say it. I'll say it.
use.
If you have a Spectrum, okay. If you have a Spectrum, call them. Go on the website right now. If you have Spectrum or Comcast, here's a PSA. Go on the website, look at your plan, see what it is. Demand new equipment, because chances are you may have some old, moldy, rotting equipment that is severely restricting what you have. And I'm telling you right now, they're not going to tell you this. They're not going to say, "Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're restricting your service." No, call them. Get new equipment.
And I'm sure I've said this on the show before, so I won't kind of repeat myself ad nauseum. But I will say that they even upgrade us to like 300 or 400 megabits download speed, and still 10 upload speed. 10 megabits upload. So yes.
It's not terrible. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world.
It's the worst thing in the world. But I will say
trying to be nice, Ben.
But I will say that when it was 300 or 400, and they just kind of upgraded us, the modem that they had, we had like 6 technicians out over the course of like a week. The internet was spotty. It was dropping all the time. One technician kind of pulled me aside and said, we don't actually have any hardware that it works with our speeds. If you want to fix this, go out and buy your own modem. Like that is, and I did, and it was like $50. It fixed it overnight. I mean, it was.
Is it DOCSIS 3? Is that what you have?
Yes. It was like 3 or 3.1 or whatever the latest one is. Super cheap. Modems are cheap. They're super, super cheap. But I found it like, I almost felt like I wanted to file a complaint with the company that they would sell me a service and not have the hardware to make it work, and that their own hardware would make what I'm paying for not work.
Well,
it seemed almost scummy, but
can I say something to you though?
Yeah,
here's the thing though. They knew exactly what they were doing, and this is where you and I have a difference of opinion. So I don't really want to get into it too much because it's a little political. But that's what happened with net neutrality, is that when you want to get everyone a service, but you don't want to but you don't necessarily want to invest. And for better or for worse, I mean, like I told you, I'm a guy who watches the canary in the mines. I'm not brave. I'm not a first adopter. Like, I'm a first adopter with this because it works. But generally speaking, though, I mean, there's going to be a high price tag associated with new technology to pay for investment. And the problem with Spectrum and some other small ISPs, they didn't want to do that. Because what happens is, if you do that, for example, the definition of broadband was 3 megs or 1 meg, and then it was 3 and then 6?
As recently as like 5 years ago, it was 6 and 1.5 upload download, or I'm sorry, download upload, and then it eventually it evolved all the way up to I think like 20 megabits download. Yeah.
So these companies are considered monopolies, and they're considered legal monopolies in the same way the U.S. Postal Service is that because the government allows them to basically, let's just say, play unrestrained, they make deals like, we'll give out free internet to low-income people. We'll do this. But in order to satisfy that requirement, they have to have the service that works. There's no way a company is going to willingly spend $1 trillion upgrading all their equipment and to give it away and get no recost. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. Like, literally in cities like...
I mean, you do pay for it. You do pay rental fees.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a scam. So, but like, they have all these old boxes, right? They have all these ancient boxes that are just repurposed satellite machines or whatever. Mm-hmm. And when they're going to give you a service, the last thing they give a crap about is giving you a new fancy box, because they don't want you sucking up the bandwidth. Because that's another thing. The bandwidth... Can you imagine what's going to happen a year from now, 2 years from now, when I had this conversation the other day, and I'll make it quick. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks everybody worked from home last year. I don't think so. People streamed Netflix from home, and it crippled the internet. Can you imagine what happens when you have trillions of dollars of infrastructure downtown suddenly transferred to the internet? Hello? People don't understand what's going to happen.
Well, but I feel like the networks did handle pretty well under all the new stress, regardless of where the bandwidth was coming from. I have my own thoughts on, this idea that if you use your internet too much, then they start to cap you out. And I hate that vehemently. That, if you pay, it's almost crazy that like you pay for 100, let's say Nathan pays for two gigs down and 1 gig up. If you use 2 gigs down, 1 gig up, which is essentially what you paid for, and they come at you and say, you're using a lot. And it's like, how much am I using? Am I using more than I paid for? It's like, well, no, you're using your speeds, but you're using it more than we want you to. And it's like, oh my God, that is the worst argument. I hate data caps.
Oh no, it's worse than that. It's a lie, because they first of all, these companies, they're predators. They say unlimited, no data caps,
unlimited asterisk. Lately, they've at least been forced to put the asterisk. Before they didn't, but now they do.
You know what? Any company that says truly unlimited, you shouldn't need to. That's like saying Infinity Plus.
Really real facts. Yes.
But they okay. For example, what was that company? Was it Spectrum or was it Time Warner? Was it AT&T? They used to couple one of those streaming services in with their service. I think it was AT&T was coupling in Netflix or something.
And I think that was Comcast and Hulu. I think. Yes.
So, well, when under California law, when they repealed net neutrality, and I don't want to make this into a net neutrality thing, but I just want to make my point, is that when California reenacted their own statewide net neutrality, these companies had to remove these services because they would be considered unfair that they were bundling them in. So you are actually going to get lesser service because of this. But this is the problem, though, is that, I'm sorry, if you pay for a Verizon cell phone and you pay $100 a month, chances are, call me crazy, you're going to get a better phone service than Cricket Wireless, where you pay $20 a month. Now, Cricket may be good for you and me and for grandma, but if you want to do lots of calls around the world, you want networks, it's not going to be good enough. Sometimes you do have to pay more to get better. And I think the problem is that the cell phone companies and the cable companies, they've overpromised. They've taken these mediocre, threadbare services and they said you could do whatever you want, and then when you actually do it, they punish you for it. Oh, here's $10. We'll give you another gig. No.
Data caps have been proven time and time again to be essentially the new revenue stream because they're losing out on cable subscriptions, so they're going to make the money up in other revenue streams, such as data caps. Let's go ahead and just say that. And just real quick, we actually have a comment, Crowley, saying, what's the arguments for net neutrality bill? And again, not to turn, and I think we have an archive a couple of years ago when net neutrality.
I have an argument. No, I'll be pro. I'm typically 99% against. But the pro is that I do think what we just talked about. You have cable companies that have unrestricted access to lies, and there needs to be truth in consumer disclosures. And I think anything that regulates that is fine. But as far as the government regulating services, no, stay away. The companies have done fine for that. Let them battle. Let them price gouge. Whatever. At the end of the day, if Google Fiber is not good enough, I'll go to Comcast. And if Comcast is not good enough, I'll go to Google Fiber.
Yeah, so, and I think that the basis that net neutrality, kind of what it was argued before, was treating it more like a utility, where your internet is your internet, and any service that wants to use your internet, regardless of network, regardless of kind of what nodes they use or anything like that, would be delivered the same. There's no fast lanes, there's no slow lanes, there's no
Can I
blocking.
Say one thing?
Real quick, real quick.
Yeah, last thing.
Then I will. Well, last thing.
This is again. Yeah.
I would say that net neutrality, again, was this idea that data is data. There's no preferential data. There's no where the data originates from or goes to or anything like that. Anything gets treated differently. It's just data is the network, and it's up to Comcast, AT&T, whoever runs the network, to make sure that whatever's flowing through them, kind of happens at the same rate. Obviously, companies don't like that because they want to make sure that their services, their packets, their customers get a better service than having to treat everything on a level playing field. And yeah, so Nathan, I'll let you go ahead.
No. I don't disagree with any of that in theory, right? But the fact of the matter is, data is different. I mean, the data for an MP3 is different than a VoIP call. It's different than satellite. And to the idea, I mean, I'm sorry, but you can't have an egalitarian argument over data. But I'll say this though, one quick thing about utilities. Anybody listening who pays utility bills, what happens when you use too much water or too much gas or too much electricity or too much anything. You want your internet to be a utility, get ready for charges, because that's exactly what happens. And so I'm not trying to say I'm on the side of the cable companies. I'm not saying I'm against the government. I'm not. I'm just saying I think both sides have put bad faith arguments. And when I hear people talk about net neutrality, I don't think they understand. And so I'm kind of neutral on the issue, believe it or not.
And we've actually talked about this, for an hour on the show before, and I recall this like 2 years ago.
You understand, Ben. You're different.
And I'm on the other side. I really am.
I know. We're Siskel and Ebert. So.
Yes, exactly. Agree to disagree, and we're going to go ahead and move on from that. Because of the administration change over the last couple of months, net neutrality is back in the spotlight because it wasn't a thing for the last 4 years.
We'll see.
Yeah, so if it comes up again, Nathan, I would love to have you on a separate show to talk about.
I'm really not that passionate about it.
Too bad. You're going to come on anyways.
Okay.
So
anyway,
story.
Wi-Fi 6, grab it. It's great. That's all I got to say. Grab it.
And actually, I want to clear one thing up, Crowley. So with it repealed, it is not open and free. Essentially, net neutrality was repealed when Trump and his administration came in. We've been living the last 4 years without net neutrality. And so far,
I know the internet has been a hellhole. It's been a total
nothing
hellhole.
has really changed in the last 4 years. There's when net neutrality would be enacted or reenacted, I guess, to a certain extent, however it changes, you would see rules and regulations put in place. I think that, Nathan, one side or the other, your side or my side, I feel like companies are waiting.
It's a distraction.
Companies are waiting. Well, not even a distraction. Companies are waiting for something to be codified into law before they jump on something because, hey, they could invest all this money and time and effort into a service, and if they have to change it, I mean, they're not going to do it. So they're waiting for something to actually happen.
Ben, we have to ban menthols. Let's talk about something else.
Absolutely. But no, the next story is one that we've covered on the show, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But Disaster Girl sold her popular meme, and not just the meme, more like the photo behind the meme, because obviously memes are, you put text or something else that makes it relatable, and it's copied ad nauseum. But Disaster Girl, which is, let's see, I believe this image here, she sold the original image of herself in the burning house, if you recall the meme, as an NFT for auction for $500,000. So I would love your take.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. What do you think about NFTs, real quick?
NFTs, I think they're actually atrocious. The energy costs behind them, they're actually an environmental hazard, just like Bitcoin and the blockchain, or at least that particular blockchain that's associated with Bitcoin. And I've said it, what I said when I talked about this exactly. Everyone had like that one NFT that sold for $69 million from for some reason I want to say Beefy, but that's not his name. Beeple.
I wish my name was Beefy.
Yes, I wish it was Beefy too. But no, Beeple sold his for $69 million. I personally don't see the value in owning the original something that everyone has access to and everyone can copy and paste infinitely.
But it's not even the original, though. That's the thing. There's no original digital.
Well, and that's what the NFT is that at least the creator of the image said this is the original. And so it may not be the original, but it's what they claim is the original.
But it's not, though.
So what I'm saying, Nathan, is that I don't see the value in these kinds of things. But I can see for historical purposes and maybe novelty, I get it. But I also don't think that's $500,000 worth of novelty, personally.
Here's the thing. You and I are completely simpatico on this.
And by the way, real quick, someone in the chat mentioned this, and I should not have assumed this or taken this for granted. NFT, non-fungible token, and it's a way for digital goods, mainly pictures and art so far, but you can essentially have anything linked to an NFT. A non-fungible token is like a trackable, traceable signature that you can say this item is this item, and you can verify that a digital good, which again can be copy and pasted and shared infinitely, there can only be one, or to quote Highlander, there can only be one with the original signature on that NFT. So you own a unique digital copy. That is what an NFT is. So Nathan.
Okay. All right. in the 1990s on TV, they used to have these commercials where you can get commemorative plates. And you could have, like, there would be a limited edition commemorative plate, like only one of 30,000. Oh, I need to buy these plates. I need to
before
be
they moved on to coins. Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And when you look at stuff like this, like it's an original. It reminds me of that joke where they said, "Is it like the husband shows his wife the diamond? It's like, is it real?" It's like, yeah, it's a genuine Cooper Zirconi. like the fact of the matter is, here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think most people agree with us that NFTs are a gigantic money laundering scam. And I'll say this, there's no such thing as an original digital. And I think if there's any value to what this concept is, I think to listen to people like the Winklevoss twins commented on this, like nobody understands what NFTs are. Nobody. They're a way for really, really, really rich people to transfer money from one thing to another. That's what it is. It's like what it is. It's the idea. Okay, it's like the guy who makes the bomb shelter in the 1960s, and he loads it up with beans and food, never thinking that the food at one point is going to expire. At some point, you're investing all this money in an NFT. And honestly, if it's someone like the little girl, she said she's going to use the money to pay for college. I'm all for it.
Right.
But when you have like Jack Dorsey selling his first tweet, like that's not what art is. I'm sorry.
But
Andy Warhol talked. Hold on a second. Andy Warhol talked about this stuff with soup cans and about how you're holding a reproduction of something that everyone's like. He made the comment like, "Have you ever seen the Mona Lisa?" And the chances are you've never actually seen it. You've seen a picture of it or a copy of it. In fact, even people who go to the Louvre,
it's very tiny. Smaller than people think.
It's very tiny. Like if you've ever seen a Da Vinci, they're all tiny. Like seeing a Da Vinci up close is awesome. If you've never seen it, he's a genius. But I'll say this. It's not the real thing if you're looking on a computer screen. So the idea I think is more ethereal. The idea that you think you're investing, like the guy who invests in comic books thinks, oh, I'm going to invest my college fund in comic books. But the fact of the matter is, like all capitalism, like all goods and trades, the value of something is limited to what someone will pay for it. So you could pay $69 million, right? But that's you. Like, doesn't mean someone else is going to pay $69 million for it.
So I feel like what you're actually talking about is the high art world, which is this crossover you're seeing where people are paying for what is essentially art and collectibles.
Exactly.
And, like a Jackson Pollock, one person will say, well, it looks like a bunch of splashes on canvas. And then an art expert will go, well, no, it's about the use of space. It's about the predictive strokes that he did. Like they can explain all the history behind it, but there's always going to be that disconnect where someone says, my 5-year-old can do that. And someone else will go, yeah, $13 million. What a steal. I'm happy I got that.
You actually bring up a good point. The people that are actually crazy enough to spend $30, $60 million are not people who appreciate art. If you actually look at the people who buy art, it's people who are tech company owners. It are people who are drug dealers. It are people who don't understand art, but they think they're investing in something. It doesn't matter if Jackson Pollock sneezed on a painting or he threw some blobs. The fact is you're buying a Jackson Pollock. It could be his used toilet paper. It doesn't matter what's on it. Like we have to be clear here. The actual content is nothing. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Vincent van Gogh died penniless, syphilic and crazy, but only after he died were his paintings worth any money. It's value judgments. And so the idea, I can't explain this any more than I can't explain why people would pay $80 million for Play-Doh. But the fact of the matter is, if people are paying it, that's their money, right? But like all Bitcoin stuff, I think we're kind of being sold something, or cryptocurrency, we're being sold that this is the future. And I think the best argument for NFT that I've heard, as someone who actually, like, I deal with copyrights. Like, if you look at my picture, these pictures are copyright. Right. Like the idea, like when I send a copyright into the government, what I have to do, right, Ben? I have to send an original piece of artwork, not a copy, on archival paper. It's acid free. It needs to be a specific type of ink, so it's be archived. Does that mean I own the picture forever, all this stuff? No, it just means that my intellectual data is copied. So even though I'm sending them an original, that applies to the copies. And I think that's kind of what NFT does. you're basically creating a copyright office saying that this person owns the license to this for X amount of whatever. So you're not actually trading anything, you're trading a license. It's sort of like Windows, kind of. Like if you buy a copy of Windows, you're not buying Windows, you're buying a license to use Windows.
And something I want to kind of point out to people, what I've been looking at on the screen here it's actually a marketplace for non-fungible tokens, for NFTs. It's not just these, obviously the $69 million one made news, the $500,000 one made news. NFTs can be bought and sold for a penny, and you can own the original of, these are all different makers of NFTs. And, you can make, NFTs for digital worlds, like in VR, in like VR chat and things like that. You can make little animations. You can make pictures. Anything digital can be an NFT. And heck, I bet you there are NFTs for non-digital goods. But yeah, and when the chatter says it's a dumb idea.
Someone's
I think
money.
That and Nathan, I honestly feel like it's people craving that sense of uniqueness that digital has kind of taken away. And yeah, it is kind of dumb because digital is digital, which means copy infinitely and that kind of thing, but nothing is unique. And that's what NFT is trying to solve.
Well, again, though, David Bowie, right? David Bowie in the 90s, he set up a stock system where people could buy stock in himself. Right? He became one of the first human beings to sell stock in himself. Wu-Tang Clan, the hip hop group, a couple years ago, they released one out. They made a CD, one copy of it, and it was sold to that guy Shrekel, the Pharma Bro guy, right?
Oh yeah, I remember.
You can't hear it. Yeah, you can't hear it because they only created for him. To me, NFTs are a little more similar, right? It's a little similar to like when a nice Jewish kid has a bar mitzvah and his dad hires like Snoop Doggy Dogg and he's giving a performance just for the kid. Like you're hiring like that, and then somebody like videotapes it and uploads it to YouTube. Like to me, it's like you said, it's trying to create the experience of personality from the hollowness of digital. And I guess I understand that to some degree, but from a value
you and I
proposition,
do not see you and I do not see the value that these people are putting on it, and that again is the difference in the art world.
Maybe we're not smart enough.
Maybe that's it.
But can I say one last thing? And this is in defense.
Yep.
You go to museums, right? You go to museums, and most of the items in a museum are junk. Like most of the items are like a spoon from the Victorian era, like stuff that people would discard. Mm-hmm. But by the sheer nature of their survival, they become valuable. Like dinosaur poop is worth money.
There was that copy of Super Mario Brothers that sold for like $400,000 recently because someone bought it and put it in the bottom drawer of their work desk, and then 27 years later, it was mint condition.
Yeah, and you hear people find masterpieces at yard sales all the time. But again, I said to you something's only valuable what people pay. But the sheer nature that things become scarce as they become older, they fade away. Like the preservation of things, like a fly stuck in amber. I mean, the fact of the matter is that's. But one thing the digital world has done, the digital world has, and we talked about this before. I mean, this was the promise of the internet that. Anyone could look at the Mona Lisa. Anyone could look at this stuff, or a version of it, a good enough version. Now, I'll say this though: maybe we're just not bright enough to see this glorious digital future. But I'll say that. But if they can commoditize this in a way that helps the arts, if you want to sell a digital tweet or whatever for $40 million, and that helps fund schools or something, then I would rather see the money get cycled like that, right? But I somehow think it'll probably go to like yachts and champagne bottles and twerkers instead. So
it's yet again anyone can create an NFT. You can, I can, anyone can. But it's again a way for people with affluence and influence to further profit from that. Because before you could not profit from digital goods
Okay.
So
one more comment, and this is not a discussion comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, since you brought up OnlyFans. Well, to me, this is no different than OnlyFans. Like you are commoditizing something online that you couldn't have commoditized years ago. And I don't want to get into the sticky details of it, but the fact of the matter is you're literally selling something unique. You're selling yourself. And I think if you can sell your tweet, you can sell your photograph, you can sell whatever, then if you can make money, then God bless capitalism.
There you go. I think that's a great way to end NFTs. And actually, that's probably the perfect summation of non-fungible tokens. Okay, so looking at the other stories that you have here, the Microsoft one's cool, but we're not going to get into revenue share. Boston Dynamics, I mean, that's just the whole thing. Let's talk about, we had a whole day dedicated to Apple, so I'm not too interested. But Roku, and last time we talked about this on the show, which was like Tuesday or something like that, Roku had warned that this was a possibility, and now it's a reality. So let's talk about Roku just real quick.
Not really Roku, is it? It's Google again. Google keeps coming up in this conversation because Google is one of those companies like Roku, not like Roku, but Google and Amazon. They're both the provider and the software. They're both the OS provider and the software provider, and because they all own storefronts where they're competing against each other, it's the Wild Wild West. And so on one hand, I mentioned capitalism, but on the other hand, this story kind of mixes more with the cable companies in that you buy a Roku device, you buy a Google device, you buy an Amazon device, whatever. You're buying, on the box, there's usually pictures of apps and everything. You're buying a promise. And it's like a satellite service. You know how companies negotiate their satellite contracts, and so they'll have blackouts of certain channels? You as a consumer, the one who makes these companies run, the one who funds these companies, they do not care about you. You are expendable to them. They have your money. And so if they decide to take the service that you've paid for away, they don't care about it. There was one workaround for Google because they pulled this nonsense before where somebody, I think it was the Echo Show, because again, Google pulled YouTube off everything. They got it to run on a web browser. And so, and then they found a way to remove that. You said you don't want to talk about Apple, and I don't want to either, but I mentioned that 4K Apple TVs going on sale today, or going on pre-orders, coming out the 24th. But Apple seems to be above this a little bit because they don't really make the software. They don't make the YouTube software. So for some reason...
They are and they aren't, and that's what I was going to bring up, kind of next, which is the story here about EU charging Apple with breach of competition law.
There's a second. No, there's a sequel to this story. There's a sequel. You mentioned you don't want to talk about the Microsoft story about the price cuts. Well, but like today, Valve is being sued because of that price. The percentage
they are all connected. I will admit
they're all connected because what's happening is we're starting to see not a convergence. We're starting to see sort of a split between the companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft, and Valve, and whatever, where they provide you the platform, either the software or the hardware. But we've grown used to walled gardens. We've grown used to playing in someone else's sandbox, and generally speaking, it works okay because you have a Windows machine, you can play anything you want. But if you have a Roku device, you're not going to be able to watch YouTube until they figure this out. If you have an Amazon device, maybe you can watch YouTube, maybe you can't. So, with Apple, it's crazy. With
Apple and what's happening with the EU, and I've talked about why the EU decisions, should matter to us here in the United States, is because if companies want to do business in the EU, they have to take EU regulation to all of their markets, not just EU, but also to the US, China, other parts of the world. So why this matters is that, just like you said about walled gardens, Apple is getting in trouble here because they're saying that because Apple makes the walled garden, they make the ecosystem, they make the world. And, anyone who wants to visit their world or play in their world, such as Spotify, has to pay Apple that 30% premium for their app to go in there. So every time a subscription gets paid through Apple for someone else's service, Apple gets a cut. And that is the unfairness that they're talking about. And Nathan, this is where it comes in. I think it's because Apple makes the ecosystem, they make the walled garden, and then on top of that, they make a competing service. That's where regulators are starting to scratch their heads and go, is this fair?
Here's the thing. Apple's the biggest, literally apple on the tree because they're the biggest target. But let me tell you something. This lawsuit is BS. The fact that Spotify exists proves they don't have a case. If I could see if Spotify could not get on the Apple Store, they are. I could see that if Spotify wasn't successful on the Apple Store, they are. I could see that if they weren't able to compete against Apple, They have more subscribers. So I'm sorry, but you can't come at me with 200 million subscribers on the iPhone and say I can't compete on the iPhone when you beat the product you claim is a monopoly. That's not what monopolies are. Like, you saw this happen with Epic Games and Apple too. The idea is that these companies, they grow big on the backs of these platforms, but then they decide that but here's the thing though, Apple can do things that Spotify can't, because unlike Spotify, Apple is a hardware manufacturer. They're a hardware manufacturer. They make laptops, they make tablets, they have other revenue streams, so they can afford it. There was a story 2 weeks ago. Apple pays a penny a stream on Apple Music. Spotify pays 50 cents. And Spotify has double the subscribers of Apple Music. Spotify put out this withering paragraph saying, oh, you can't really take that into account, has this and this and this. But the problem of the matter is that you have these services that are competing and they're both thriving. Spotify is also on Chrome browser. It's on web browser. It's on Android. It's on Xbox. It's on PlayStation. Like, the idea that Apple's a monopoly because they run that is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm not on Apple's side on this one. And I love Spotify. I'm a subscriber. I don't have Apple Music. I'm saying this as a Spotify guy.
This also ties into, like you said, with Microsoft following the way of Epic with cutting kind of revenue stream. But Epic had their own very, kind of public, and I think it's still ongoing, a lawsuit with Apple that, Epic did not want to pay a 30% commission to Apple to be on the iOS store. So they pulled it. And the way that Apple and iOS works is that if you're not on the Apple Store, there is literally no way to get an app onto your phone. Like, you can jailbreak it, but no, that's not true. Go for it.
One of the stories I was going to talk to you about was that I'm now part of the Xbox gaming streaming beta, right? And Amazon did this too. You can get on iOS. So Apple does not want to allow Xbox Game Pass to be on iOS, right? They didn't do it. They had this weird, horrible... First of all, Apple's wrong in this case. Apple's wrong. But hear me out. They said, oh, if you want to do Game Pass, you have to do individual apps for every game, which would be ridiculous. I'm part of the beta. Do you know how they get around it?
How's that?
I go to a website, and I press the share button, and you can download to your desktop.
Are you screen sharing?
That's how...
Screen sharing onto your phone.
No, it literally, like, this is how demos work when you do previews on iOS. You literally can save it to your desktop. So instead of downloading an app, you download a shortcut, and it uses the browser to play. And you know what? It's available. And Luna did this, and a couple services did this. There's other ways to do it. Epic Games, they tried this. They tried something similar with Google. They didn't want to be on the Google Play Store, so they literally encourage people to sideload apps onto their Google devices, which you can do on Android. There's a reason why 99% of mobile viruses are on Android devices, and the Apple system's pretty clean. I'm not taking Apple's side on this, but the fact of the matter is, if you have an iPhone, chances are you don't have a virus. And chances are your apps aren't, leaking data. Like, chances are pretty good because they're pretty good about that. Not so much on Android. So
Android definitely has its own set of problems with, that openness comes, the lack of vetting. But to also say that, Apple is not, or Apple is not foolproof, or, saying that you can't get viruses on there or anything like that. I could point to a number of stories.
No, I didn't say you can. I said, but chances are you don't.
Chances are, but I'm just saying that Apple does provide a superior service to Android as far as the App Store goes. Vetting apps and getting crap off of their ecosystem, much better. This workaround that you found with Xbox Game Pass and getting it on iPhones, that is a workaround, right? That's not condoned. That's not something you go to apple.com and say, here's how you do it, and they tell what you just said. That's a workaround, and that leads back to, is that fair? Is that competitive?
I mean, I don't know. But Apple doesn't seem to have a problem with it. Like, other apps do it too. Maybe, and let's be fair. On iPhone now, I don't know if do you have an iPhone?
I do. Yeah.
You do? Okay. Apple's been very good about allowing other apps to be default. You can make Chrome default now. You can make Gmail default.
That was through another lawsuit in Europe where Windows actually got sued for that as well, for making Edge the default browser. Apple and Microsoft both got sued for that as well.
So the only thing I'm saying, though, Ben, the only thing I'm saying is I'm not necessarily taking Apple's side, but I have to question the motive of something like Spotify, like the genuineness of the genuineness of a complaint when they're beating Apple. I'm sorry, but that's not what monopoly is. This reminds me of when the U.S. government took Apple to anti-trade school a couple years ago, and they fined them because iBooks. I'm sorry, Ben, you and I have talked about this, but how can Apple be a monopoly in books where they don't even have 9% market share? Literally, Amazon is the monopoly.
It is, again, I think when you provide the operating system, the platform, the marketplace, and then you provide a competing service, which is very much Apple's business model, that's when you start getting into problems. They don't do it the best, but they're competing and they give themselves an unfair advantage. Even if they aren't winning, they do that. And
that wasn't the argument. But that wasn't the argument. The argument is that Apple was conspiring to inflate the prices of books. But the fact of the matter is that
they were price fixing. They were price fixing to sell books on iOS. They had to have a minimum, which was like 99 cents or 49 cents, whatever it was. So that is collusion.
I don't buy books on iBooks. I'll just say that.
I don't think anyone does, but there you go.
Nobody does.
So, Nathan, we're actually out of time. We have 30 seconds left. If people go on over to PopZara, what are they going to find?
Reviews, podcasts, previews right now. Lots of stuff. The pandemic's almost over. Let's make it happen, people. Have some fun. Thank you, Ben, for everything again. We'll see you in 30 days.
Absolutely. And by the way, I love your mascot's new circular picture. That thing is adorable.
I know. Isn't that great?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, once again, popzara.com. You can check it out there, or Computer America will have a link. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.